Now that we have established some basis for building a team, let's talk about developing your power. Power building and how to make your account stronger is a topic that has been quite requested, and understandably so, as it is what allows you for progression that is as smooth as my brain. So first, let's talk about combat power. Combat power is something that will be quite useful in campaign push, in simulation room, the regular one, as well as in PvP. So what is combat power? It's the number that is attributed to the power of your Nikkes, and once you sum all of them, that will be the combat power of your team. It matters mostly due to what we call combat power gap or CP gap. And that is what will influence some of the difficulty sliders of the game due to the stat penalties that they will grant you because you're fighting things under the combat power. Does this mean that you should always try to aim equal combat power to the stage you're fighting? Absolutely not. What you should do is try to fight as much as possible. I will put a table here, credit to Nikke.gg for the combat power gap table, as well as the combat power gap calculations when it comes to understanding the stat penalties. So CP gap is also one of the reasons why I tend to say that tanking is absolute cope. And that is because, as I am fighting right now, Plate here in Chapter 19 hard mode, you'll see that Tia in a single laser beam almost got one-shotted by the boss, even though that laser beam at higher CPs wouldn't do nearly as much damage. And that is because she is getting absolutely shredded when it comes to her stats, even before the fight began. She has lower defense, lower attack, and she gets absolutely shredded. And Tia is a tank, by the way. This is exactly why I say that it is absolute copium to try to tank attacks or to use very tank-oriented Nikkes, unless it's Tia for other specific reasons, due to certain mechanics that I will mention in future videos. Because as you can see, HP, defense, attack, everything gets reduced by combat power deficit, which leads to your Nikkes dying very easily, and also dealing less damage. I call it a difficulty slider because it's a matter of how much of a Dark Souls enjoyer are you. So you can wait for you to have more combat power, or you could be an absolute gamer and just kill things by taking up the challenge. And if you really struggle a lot, well, it's a difficulty slider that goes both ways. If you overwhelm with combat power your opponents, meaning that you go above the combat power requirement, well, you're kind of in easy mode. Meaning that, well, you're the one who has combat advantage over the enemies at that point. So, what gives additional combat power? Well, synchro levels, of course, limit breaks, meaning additional copies of the Nikkes, skills, bonds, and recycling room. So how do you gain any of those? Well, first let's talk about levels, because that's the most straightforward one. Levels come from leveling up your Nikkes, of course, or putting them in the synchro or the synchro device. The synchro device will upgrade your Nikkes that you put in there to the same level as your highest 5-leveled Nikkes pre-level 200. Once you reach level 200, however, it will work differently. So first, let's talk before level 200. Your 5 highest level Nikkes will determine the level of your synchro device, and then you will put all of the other Nikkes in that synchro device for them to equal the level of those 5 Nikkes. Meaning that you don't need to level manually every single Nikke with your respawn. This is very important for what we call the 160 wall. So SSR Nikkes are capped at level 160 until you max limit break them. Once you max limit break them, they can go all the way to level 200. You can see where this is going, as you require 5 Nikkes, and the lowest level Nikke is what will determine the level of your synchro device. So to be able to reach level 200 on the Nikkes on your synchro device, or in any Nikke in particular, if you don't have 5 yet, you would need 4 copies total, 1 baseline to have limit break 0, and 3 to go to max limit break, meaning having 3 stars on the Nikke. This will be quite important for progression purposes, which is why you need to pre-plan your wish list to be able to get the copies required to be able to get past that 160 wall as soon as possible. Sources. Once you get past level 200, however, the synchro device will lock 5 Nikkes permanently, and then you will level up the synchro device itself. As shown here, you can see that my synchro device looks quite different from someone synchro device when they're below level 200. So, in a nutshell, the things that will increase your combat power are synchro levels, limit breaks, skill levels, gear, and cubes, as well as bond levels. So those are the key elements to keep an eye out on when increasing the power of your Nikkes. Additionally, you can increase them through the recycling room through passive additional stats. So let's start talking about buildings and relics, Tactics Academy, Recycling Area, and all of the other stuff that is in the outpost. So, if you look carefully at my outpost as a new player, you will notice that I have significantly more buildings than you. That is normal, and that is because during your campaign progression, you will find relics, that is very shiny things on the ground, that will give you blueprints. These blueprints will allow you to go into a constructible area and build a new building. Now, I have built all of them personally because I'm an endgame player, but these buildings will grant you random events, encounters, but also will be required when it comes to making your account stronger. And that is because of one of the key elements, which is called the Tactics Academy. Tactics Academy is a system where you will have to invest credits, have specific Nikkes, usually SRs and Rs, so you don't have to worry about having specific SSRs. And you can upgrade these to have bonuses. So the bonuses can range from credit acquisition by 10% and will accumulate all the way to things like core dust 20%, or for example, even things like additional synchro device slots. This is quite important to upgrade, and you should always look out to what do you need to continue progressing this, so that you can increase the passive resources that you will gain as you go. So for example, here you see lesson requirement, previous chapter, of course, of the lesson outpost defense lesson, construct a generator and 15,000 credits, and this will unlock 3 building slots. So building a generator, well, I have already built my generator here. And as you progress through the campaign, you will unlock the blueprints to build all of the different things. Now, the recycling area is another very important thing. The recycling area and recycling shop that is associated to it are what will give additional passive stats to Nikkes of specific manufacturers, as you can tell here. For example, Pilgrim, you see that mine is 107. That's because I'm a little bit of a whale and I buy some of those using the leftover from the rolls that I have. The DNA looking thing allows you to either get SSRs or those badges. I will talk about that in a later video though, in more detail. What you need to keep in mind is that in this place, you will be able to increase passively the stats. Every amount of levels, you will also be able to upgrade additionally the HP of your Nikkes through the general research using these re-energies. Hence why a lot of people don't prioritize buying these often, because it's every 20 levels, see? I am level 360, the next one is level 380, and the one afterwards will be level 400. Another spot that's, well, very important is infrastructure. Infrastructure core is tied to the achievements and will give you bonuses as well. So for example, Cleared Heart Chapter 19 will give me infrastructure points, which will go into the infrastructure core. The infrastructure core will have bonuses based on how many chips you have unlocked. I have the current maximum amount, so that is not a problem. I can show you, however, what happens. So dispatch list cap will be increased in my case. Stamina will be increased when it comes to certain specific things, which is the outpost advice sessions. Rookie Arena free entry +2. And a very important one that a lot of people miss out on is the common shop free reset, meaning that in the common shop, I have every day a free mulligan on what is in the shop to buy using credits or gems in the common shop. Now, defense level is something that is quite important. Defense level is what will determine your passive resources income. So some players might notice that I have significantly more resources per hour and per minute than they do, and that is tied to the reward level of it. Because my reward level is much higher, I get more rewards. So you have to push your campaign normal and hard mode to get as many levels as this, because each one of these little nodes that you see here is one node in campaign cleared to each level. And once you get to specific levels, you will gain more core dust, more credits, and you also gain more thanks to Tactics Academy, of course, as I mentioned earlier. So in my case, I'm at 1929 hard mode in terms of clear. So that means that I have a outpost level of 282 and quite a bit of resources compared to a newer player. Now, let's talk about the commander room. Oh, first, actually, let's talk about... First, before the commander room, let's talk about boxes. Because we talked about the defense level, let's talk about a very common mistake that people made back in the day, which is the boxes. So you see 1 hour, 2 hour, 4 hour, 8 hour, 12 hour, and so on. These are not expiring labels. This is a mistake that even myself and many other veterans did early on in the game when nobody knew anything about the game. We thought that these would expire. You see, this is exactly 63 for the 1 hour one. Well, if I go to my outpost defense, you will notice that I have 63 per hour. What these labels mean is that you get the hour equivalent of resources from these boxes. Because it is our equivalent of outpost defense, and outpost defense scales with how much you clear of the campaign, you can see a little bit of a min-maxing loop here, where you try to push as hard as humanly possible so that you get as much as possible from those boxes once you actually crack some of them open, rinse and repeat so that you have the maximum amount of resources out of them. In my case, I am not cracking them open intentionally because I'm waiting for new chapters to be added as well. Well, let us talk about the Commander Outpost. So, the Commander Outpost has quite a few things in it that you need to keep an eye out on, especially if you're free to play or low spender. So, Lost Relics and Jukebox are things that are relics that you collect across the map. As you can see, I can collect all of these little relics and everything. And you would see a lot of lore, kind of like Dark Souls style, where you get additional information from the world of Nikke. If you don't care too much about the lore, do keep in mind that collecting these will give you free gems. So that is why it's important. Same for the Jukebox, the music. You will unlock music as you go. And as you unlock these, you will be getting free gems. So for example, if I claim 6 pieces of living land, I would get 50. If I clear them all, I would get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would get 250 gems. It adds up. It actually adds up. The other things that you can look at in the commander room, of course, are advice sessions. Bond levels with Nikke's will give them passive stats. So for example, if I were to give Rem enough to level up to rank 2, you will see that her stats got increased passively a little bit with that bond level up. So, as you can see, it's capped from Limit Break 0 at 10, Limit Break 1 at 20, Limit Break 2 at 30, so Limit Break 2 at 30, and that will be the maximum amount for SSR Nikkes in general and regular Nikkes, but Pilgrims, once you max limit break them, can go all the way to affection 40. They are the only Nikke type that can go all the way to level 40 in terms of affection. Another thing that you can go into the Commander's Outpost, if you care about those, are recollections and side stories. You can just replay the archives and get some wallpaper rewards, and side story, which has gem rewards, so do keep those in mind in the Commander Outpost. Now for resource farming, it's gonna be mostly a matter of doing campaign push to increase the passive resources that you get. And during events, you will be able to proper farm resources. So for example, if we look here, I can go into the shop and I can buy things from the shop. That is one way that you will be passively farming them. And in the shop, you will notice that there are these sports event tickets or whatever types of tickets for gems that you can get. These are very worthwhile even for free-to-plays and low spenders because they will allow you to have additional entries to the event farming. So what most people that min-max their account do is they wait for hard mode to unlock so that they can do the repeatable event for one of the most difficult resources to farm in the game, which is core dust crates. So right now, this one would give me 2 per clear. The hard one would give me 4 per clear. So once the event hard mode portion comes out, I will buy out all of these tickets and I will farm the resources there and also finish buying out the shop. Other places where you will farm resources generally will be Simulation Room, Special Interception, Arena, Lost Sector to some extent, and then Solo Raid and Union Raid. So Solo Raid will give you batteries, which will allow you to increase the power of your cubes, which we will talk about in a later video. And Union Raid will give you these chips, which allow you to either buy spare bodies of Liberation Nikkes and batteries straight up as well. So this will be it for this part of the video on building power. The next video will also be about building up your power, but it will be a very extensive guide on gear upgrading, overloads, cubes, and skill investments. So do look forward to that one. With that out of the way, Allyane out. Catch you on the next video.